appears after the announcement of Hassan's death in prison. An anthropocentric interpretation could see these animals as harbingers, foreshadowing the cruelty that humans inflict upon one another. Posthumanism leads us to see instead that the cruel treatment of canine companions is continuous with the inability of these humans to coexist together. It's not premonitory, but coextensive with a dangerous insistence on difference and distance from others. Only by chance, in this case, others of another species. This is not an abstract argument. On the contrary, it's a line of argument that's literally part of the fabric of human and of canine existence. Recent studies of dogs' mitochondrial DNA have demonstrated their emergence from wolves earlier than had previously been thought possible, perhaps 50,000 to 15,000 years ago, making them extremely long-term companions for the human animal. And scientists note that human life ways change significantly in association with them. Domestication is a complex process of cohabiting, where changes in minds, bodies, and cultures of both humans and dogs co-evolve and coexist in relationships that are multiform, unfinished, and consequential. Failed cohabitation in the right distance is paralleled at a visual level by a camera that captures only short takes of the slain victims, and on a narrative level by a story that focuses on other tragedies. In a playful but learned etymology for the word species, Haraway notes that the Latin specere or specere, to look or behold, is at the root of the term. Both community and film continue to turn their gazes away from the death of the dogs, failing to look seriously either at the problem or at themselves. And a lot of posthumanists connect this attitude, as Haraway does, with other looks which assign marginality. The discursive tie between the colonized, the enslaved, the non-citizen, and the animal, all reduced to type, all others to rational man, and all essential to his bright constitution, is at the heart of racism and flourishes lethally in the entrails of humanism. The story of the dead dogs is carefully kept at the right distance from the main narrative. This concept in the title of the film derives in a comment made by a lofty newspaper editor for whom Giovanni works. One has to learn to maintain the right distance, explains Bencivenga, in order to report stories accurately. So as we learn over the course of the film, the right distance equals detachment. For Giovanni, it implies maintaining anonymity in town as a reporter and also not becoming too emotionally involved in the stories he reports. Yet the belief in journalistic objectivity resonates dangerously with what Marchesini calls humanism's myth of purity, the extraction of human identity from its relationships to other beings, separating the human from the non-human and the human from the inhuman. Purity is about distance, divergence, marginalization. It's in conflict with connections and continuities, which can lead to contamination. Giovanni takes a position of distance from his community. It becomes evident over the course of the film that this increasingly not right distance is in fact maintained by everyone in Conca d'Albero, and that an underlying fear of contamination leads them to neglect and even to reject ties with others, in particular the non-human and non-citizen residents of the village. So Mara herself is important in this regard. She's a non-citizen of Conca d'Albero. When she descends from the bus upon her arrival in town, her walk down the main street is uncomfortable. The townspeople are all watching her critically and refuse to return her friendly smile, instituting a reign of surveillance that continues thematically throughout the film. When she arrives at the isolated house in the country she plans to rent during her stay, one of the first things she asks is about the horse that she sees standing in a fenced enclosure outside. Unsolicited, the manager assures her that it won't bother her and that, in fact, it doesn't even neigh. By way of welcome, then, there comes an assurance that her only neighbor will be silent. But Mara doesn't seek silence or distance from those around her, and this fact becomes more evident shortly thereafter. I'm going to show you a little film clip. When an assembly of locals comes to help her move in her furniture and hook up a phone connection, we see that one of them discovers a colony of bees or wasps. Oops, okay. Just take a moment.
Scusate, potete portarla questa qua? Grazie.
Silvestre! Oh! Silvestre! Oh, scavate! Io mi metto! Oh! Senti, mi piace, Silvestre! Oh, Te puttane!
Che è successo?
Se le vespe la ciclania! Fammi l'altro che le brucia!
Non uccidere, aspetta, ti do una cosa io, un attimo. Un po' più indietro. E un po' più in qua. Perfetto.
Controlli se funziona.
Fantastico. Grazie.
Sterilizzate, erano 10 anni che stava là, nessuno gli dava fastidio. Se io se fossi lei starei mica tanto a fare l'ambientalista qua.
Ho messo su un po' d'acqua, vi va di ste pancia?
Pancia. Ho letto su Focus che se un'ape trova un fiore a 10 km di distanza, riesce a comunicarlo alle altre e ci arrivano tutte, non sbagliano neanche di un metro.
E come fanno?
Un sistema suo. Sai che nell'alveare sono tutte come ammucchiate le api, no? E allora questa comincia a strusciarsi addosso alle altre, no? Fa come dei giri a 8 sopra tutto il mucchio. E le altre contano proprio il numero dei giri e capiscono dove devono andare.
Beh, è romantico come modo di comunicare. Si tocca.
To this one in just one moment. So Mara obviously upsets the status quo in the village, in part because of her way of viewing relations, human and non-human, and also she doesn't offer espresso as she should. Her observation about the bees and her appreciation for the tactile way of interrelating recalls Haraway's formulation of situated histories, in which all the actors, quote, become who they are in the dance of relating, not from scratch, not ex nihilo, but full of the patterns of their sometimes joined, sometimes separatist heritages before and later to this encounter. Mara's willingness to participate in this relational dance is evident throughout the film. Her rapport with Hassan is complicated, since originally she discovered that he was spying on her in the evenings, watching her through the wide uncurtained windows of her country home. In fact, the only living dog we see in the film is an out-of-town dog who accompanies her friend on a trip from Milan to visit her and alerts Mara to the presence of Hassan outside by barking at him. His willingness to look at Hassan, the dog, will actually acknowledge him, and the camera's willingness to look at him initiates the dialogue between Mara and Hassan that has formerly been silent. After confronting him, Mara gradually agrees to forgive him, and arriving cheerily at his house one evening, she brings the ingredients to make couscous. Dining and talking together, Hassan and Mara become companions, a word that originates in the Latin cum panis, with bread, and that Haraway activates to explain the complicated nature of companionship that she says is, quote, less shapely and more rambunctious than one might expect. Yet this kind of companionship has no place in the traditional world of Conca d'Albero, and its failure is evident in the misreading of and lack of attention to the killing of the dogs. Left by the side of the road, abandoned in piazze, poked and prodded by the curious children, they suffer in obscurity, and their aloneness is created semiotically in the film by their visual and narrative marginality. As such, Conca d'Albero and the film La Giusta Distanza fail to afford the company in suffering that might lead to a compassionate relationship